AI will replace a lot of people's jobs, no doubt about it. It's happening now. I think one thing that it will not replace is leadership.
I agree. I'm a big believer that it's going to replace the doers. It's not going to replace the thinkers and the architects.
How do I really define leadership? I think, just summed up in one word, it's influence. I have to influence myself to do things that I don't want to do each and every single day. If I don't do that, then I can't influence other people to do it. I don't necessarily believe in work-life balance. I think really my definition is just know where to be and when to be there. And that's presence, and that's a superpower. So for me, and it's constantly living in a state of improvement.
I don't believe in work-life balance either. I believe in work-life integration. And if we put intentional effort into it, we really can have all things that we care about. We just can't have them all in the exact same moment.
Any business, any industry, it all starts with...
Welcome back to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here. I like to have real, raw conversations with people who are moving others in this world. I often say the most impactful and influential individuals, but sometimes it's just moving, education, impact, and it shows up in a whole variety of different ways. The cool part about the way that we've been able to build this show is we have access to incredible individuals, and it's all about shortening the curve to learning for you. Today, our guest is no different. He's an individual that really is forward thinking. He's cutting edge, and he's someone that in the financial industry has not only helped a number of individuals through his own firm, but is also helping a number of individuals beyond just the business and the financial components. He is an avid individual in terms of discipline and going after the things that he wants, and it shows up in a variety of different hobbies that get infused into his life. And so Matt is the founder of Rise North Capital, and brother man, I'm grateful to have you here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Excited for it.
Well, the only question I ask every guest on both shows, and it's always after I quickly do my introduction, is outside of whatever I said about you or the little bit that I actually know about you, Matt, who are you in your words?
I think, first and foremost, I'm a leader. I have to lead myself each and every single day in order to lead others, right? Whether that's my family, I have 3 sons, whether it's my relationship with my wife, right? I got to show up for me in order to show up for her. Whether it's the people inside my organization. So first and foremost, I'm a leader, father, as I just shared there, and husband.
I really appreciate that so much of your focus, and you listened and actually responded with the who you are versus the what you do, right? Leadership is a part of who you are. I also very much respect that you put in father and husband in there very quickly, because there's a lot of folks that don't really capture that as a part of who they are. It's just a component of their lives. We're going to come back to components of that, but I actually want to pause for just a second, because I think that words are nuanced and are often based on the eye of the beholder, right? There are definitions, but then there's definitions that we ourselves hold. And leadership and being a leader can show up in 50 different ways and mean a variety of different things. So what does it mean for you specifically to be a leader? And more specifically, within each one of those categories, how does leadership vary or change based on whom you're leading?
A lot to unpack. I will take the first one first. If first thing first, Brian, if that's cool.
Yeah.
As far as like, how do I really define leadership? What does a leader do? How do you live like a leader? I think to really just sum it up in one word, it's influence. And as I shared in the introduction on in terms of who I am, I have to influence myself to do things that I don't want to do each and every single day. Things that get me motivated, get me charged up to really win the day and get after it. If I don't do that, then I can't influence other people to do it. So a lot of my influence starts with my own actions. It's things that I have to believe, I have to say, I have to do, and then I have to follow through and act on. And I think that's what it's all about, like at the core, right? It's my influence, again, start with me and then extrapolating that out to everything else that I touch in my life.
So I really appreciate that answer. And I think the awareness and understanding of leading yourself first is key, right? And so for just a minute, because I know we will go deeper on some of these pieces later, talk to me just a little bit about how that leadership and that influence shows up, again, across the 3 verticals that you described, which really is your kids, your wife, and then obviously within your business. How do they look the same? How might they differ?
As far as how they look the same, I think it all, again, roots back to how I show up for myself and then therefore show up, for them. Obviously, there's different things that I need to lead, whether it's, by example, or the activity or the behavior that I want to, duplicate, whether it's a team member or whether it's one of my sons. So inside the organization, what I can tell you, and I think this is even part two of your question, often situational. And I think that's where a lot of people, get it wrong, or just get really off track with someone, is that we often lead people the same way. And we often lead, the situation through the lens of like, oh, well, this person, they get it, right? They have experience doing X, Y, and Z. So therefore they should know how to do, whatever it is that we're having them do. If they're a newbie, if they're a beginner on the task, right, I have to lead the situation, not lead the individual. So that's situational leadership. And it's one of the things that can be really challenging if you don't understand it. Mm-hmm. So as a leader, I have to, teach, the leaders that I'm developing on how to read the situation, how to lead people at different levels. And that could look totally night and day different than the actual situation at hand. As far as, being an example, at home, I think the challenge for a lot of people, living, big lives, right? And, I don't necessarily believe in work-life balance. I think, it's really, my definition is just knowing where to be and when to be there. And that's presence, and that's a superpower. So for me, and it's, constantly living in a state of improvement. I call it the chase. And that's like where I get fulfillment. It's like, how do I chase the best version of me? So when I have to make this transition from, the work life to the home life, it has to be the same me. And I have to put just as much energy in what I do, right, to make a living into the life that I'm creating at home, right? And so what that looks like, that transition, is I have to dim one thing, right? Because I don't think there's an off switch, right? Like the light switch, right, is, something on the wall. That's not real life, So it's not like I go from Matt in the office to Matt at home. However, there's a dimmer. So I have to dim down, some of these things that are wrestling in my mind, because it doesn't just turn off when I get into the door. And that's where this, present being is really, it's like a superpower today, right? People are so distracted. Yeah. They can't focus. So that's what I'm constantly working on, is like, how can I be present in that moment? And with, a young family, young sons that, they crave attention. And if that window is small, it's how do I be present in that moment? And that's how I'm trying to lead now, and just really, getting on their level and being in that moment, and just really not even being in it, Brian, right? But like being with it. And, that's one of the things that I'm working on in my leadership game, when you ask about different components to it. Yeah. As far as, the relationship with my wife, it's just like, running the business. I have to be very intentional with, how I show up, how we plan, how we're proactive, how we communicate, how we execute on the things that we say we're going to do for one another. How I can be regulated, in control of whatever the situation is, in order to create security, right? I have to do that, whether it's for my team, whether it's for my wife. So that's another, thing that's constantly, being worked on in order to improve, because like all things, right? If we stay still, we don't just stay still, right? Because everything moves ahead, which means that we actually get left behind. So, that's some of the work that, I'm thinking about, acting on, right? Always trying to just get, leveled up in all these areas of my life, because they're all connected.
Well, they absolutely are all connected. Yeah. They absolutely are all connected. And I just want to thank you for leaning into, this kind of start to our conversation. I know that it's a little untraditional, probably for me to kind of push and try to unpack some of those pieces, but you also put so much wisdom in those answers. I mean, you really talked about some concepts that are very challenging for any person to master, which are meeting people where they are, right? Being able to seek and understand perspective, which is based on the situations. It's about genuinely putting yourself in a position to be the example with presence, which, by the way, is not only one of the most freeing places and ways to exist, but can be one of the most challenging, all the way down to how am I regulating and processing and releasing and showing up in every moment around accountability. And so what I love too is I don't believe in work-life balance either, right? I believe in work-life integration. And if we put intentional effort into it, to your point exactly, we really can have all things that we care about. We just can't have them all in the exact same moment, which means we have to be conscious about how we transition. As you talk about this, right, you can tell, one, that you're not only someone who has put in a lot of intention and work and has discipline, but that you also fully surrender to the fact that you're still on the journey, right? You are looking to improve every single day. And what I love about what you said is there's actual math that supports it. And you understand this in the space that you're in, right? If we're not growing, we really literally are dying. And this was one of the most hard concepts for some of my old business partners to understand is in this growth model, we have to be able to outpace inflation, right? And that means that we've got to be typically doing 5, 10, 15% double digit growth every single year just to outpace inflation and the costs of increased life expense and all of the above. This is true in everything in life though, which is if we're not moving, right? We ultimately are dying because everything else keeps moving with us. When in your life did you realize that lesson and start to be able to apply it holistically?
I go back to my leadership journey and how when I started to really build a business by leading other people and getting over and above what I could do with my own two hands, I had to really go down the rabbit hole of self-development. And in self-development, it took me down a path of being the best leader inside the organization. And that was like chapter 1. And then I realized if I'm just best at what I do in the workplace, then all these other things are going to suffer. I have to go into this chapter 2, which I would say for me, happened after years of being in the black hole of just really, head down, dialed into winning the week. And they wake up and like, all right, what do I really have other than the Friday win? So chapter 2 was how do I self-develop in a way that it benefits the life I want to have all around me and the people that I want to run with and, feeling connected and feeling loved. It has to take place, not just when I'm winning, inside of the business. So chapter 2 evolved into, the real personal growth journey on how, through other leaders in my life, coaches, there's this whole other version of me that hasn't existed yet until I started to get as much dialed in as I was in the business on all these other things, right? Whether it's parenting, whether it's my marriage, whether it's stuff going on internally in me, and that's how I started to operate. And I've gotten a lot more aggressive, certainly within just the past couple of years, on really, breaking down all the things that I would inside of a company in my personal life. And, I say that, but there's also plenty of things, right, that happen because this is real life that don't operate the same, right? Like there's not, a P&L necessarily in relationships. However, I've been a lot more clear on my intention of becoming the best me all around, not just the best leader in business. And that's, led to ultimately where I think I am today, or I know I am, which is living out my purpose, which is to help other people live a better life. And I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of people on this journey in the financial advice space because everybody needs it. And there's so many people that are in demand, for great people, given it that we can attract a lot of people to what we do, that I get to help people think broader. early on versus taking the time that I had to put in to figure out what you sacrifice if you're not, to your point, integrating all these things.
Yeah. You and I have similar trajectories, right? Very different stories, very different situations and occurrences, but not a dissimilar story, especially for high performers who've had or found ways to create success in business, right? Who also care about people and want to have a family, but there's all these narratives that shape who we are very early on. And you just said something very profound, which is not just that you have found your purpose, right? And the more you've done this work, but you are in a position right now where you want to be able to help expand and broaden other people's thinking, feeling, and opportunities earlier in life than you had to, and in a less painful way than you had to in terms of unpacking it. And so I'd love it if you're willing to go there. I'd like you to take us back a little bit further and help us understand some of those earlier dynamics of Matt's life that shaped the belief systems, the drive, the focus in the business that, as you call it, the black hole ultimately sucked you in at some point, and you probably weren't even aware it did it until you had a moment that you saw, right? That's just my guess. But give us a little bit of a feel for that journey and that story, and then we'll unpack some components from there.
Sure. Happy to share. I'll back up as far as, where some of these, I call them key ingredients that go into the overall success formula may have come from. I didn't grow up with, a silver spoon or anything like that. I had a great loving family that would support me. And I always felt that support. However, I always, for some reason, wanted to go after, a life that was bigger than what I had. And I was willing to do the work that I thought would get me there. And at different, periods of time, right, that life that you're going after was just the next step to get to the next place. And, whatever that path is, I mean, when I was younger, it was, ride my bike to go change oil at Jiffy Lube and be on payroll at, 16 years old. And then it was, finding ways, to make money in college, whether that was, bartending, whether that was playing gigs. I did a lot of, I got my 10,000 hours of drumming in college, and I got paid to, go out to these bars, play drums for 3.5 hours and drink for free. So it wasn't a bad gig, but there was always something going on in my life that I just went and did. And, whether it was, because it felt good, whether it was to pay some bills, but I just always took that self-ownership and put the responsibility on me, even though I have, like I said, a great loving family that would have supported me if I asked. I just never did. So I think that is a key ingredient where, some people just are willing to do the work. And I've worked some jobs that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. You name it, I've done it. I would figure out where I was working the next day by going on Craigslist. Back in the day, there used to be a gig section on Craigslist, and people would say, "Hey, we need someone to go shovel shit." And I'd be like, "All right, let's go." So that was me. And I think doing all that, for that period of time really set me up for, okay, I can do anything. Give me a better path. And I'm really not going to lose sight of what I've done in my life to get here. And I don't want to keep doing that. So if you give me a shot at something bigger, something better, then I'm really going to take all of that. So I was fortunate to eventually get into the financial advice space, not because that was a clear path after college. I was just a college kid, graduated with no job, owed $100,000 plus to the government in student loans, was upside down $1,500 in my checking account when I interviewed for the role. And what I found out is that the financial advice space really gives anyone a shot. It's a pretty big net that they cast out there, because it doesn't mean you're getting a job. It just means that they're going to give you a shot to get all these licenses, pass, the assessment test to see if they're even, going to consider you to go and take the test. So again, that was just for me the first time in life.
It's a high churn rate in the industry. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. I mean, there's a high churn rate before you even get in the door. So it wasn't my resume or my experience that I didn't have that got me the shot. It was the industry itself going to play the numbers game. So I was fortunate to get into the game. And again, like I said, I wasn't going to waste the opportunity knowing where I had come from, in jobs that, I didn't see myself doing, for the rest of my life, or just I didn't want to do or couldn't do in order to even have a life. So once I got the shot and I got into the space, I got dialed in really fast, and I built a client business. In my 20s, I got to a point in my life where doing well, for 28-year-old, but I lacked some fulfillment. I knew that I didn't have the structure. I lacked the structure. Was disciplined in other areas of my life, but when it came to business, I lacked structure, and ultimately, it was just the white space where, they say, like, idle hands, that's when the devil comes, right? In this business, as an entrepreneur, white space on the calendar is where, your head starts going, in a million different directions. And, I needed to take on more, than what I was taking on. So got, an opportunity to start this leadership journey where, you're building a team, you're figuring out how to, build out systems and operations and develop people so they could do what you can do, and you can impact more people than what I could do in my 20s. So that's where I went down this rabbit hole, Brian. And, leadership changed my entire life. And it was like, I don't know, close to 10 years where I was just soaking it up. And because I loved every, ounce of it, what being a leader was, I just took all of it and I applied it to the business. So I didn't extrapolate out into all these other areas of my life. And that was the miss. So when I tell you, chapter 2 was figuring out, like, okay, you don't just put it all, all the weight, here. You gotta make sure that when you're, at home, or you're, re-energizing, or it's your health, you gotta put it there too. So that way it's going to help you in these other areas accelerate.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing that, right? I was getting every last drop of gas, that I had in the tank, into my career. And, that cost me, I think it cost me, certainly some years of my life. Which the cool thing is, like, I'm trying to be 23 again. Like, that's what I'm trying to do.
Gaining them back,
with my health, man. And I think you can do that today with, all the, opportunities out there, right, to, really optimize your health. So that's where I'm trying to get back these years that I think I lost because I was just so, zeroed in on winning in the business life. That was only one part of my life, and all the gas was, that's where it went, in my 30s. And then, now I'm on chapter 3, man. And I feel like I'm just starting, this next chapter, and, it's a whole new journey, and I'm taking as many people as I possibly can with me this time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your story, there are definitely unique components of it, and we're going to unpack that. But there's also components of that really are in that high performance component, and particularly in the financial services industry. And so when I say this, I don't in any way mean to imply any of this is your case, but I was in the risk management and employee benefits consulting space. And so we were in the financial services industry as well. And, it's interesting because I am one of those people that learned to receive love, validation, and connection through performance, right? It was always contingent upon what I did. And when you look at an industry like you just outlined, there's also a lot of not only money, but there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of risk, and there's a lot of reward, right? But there's also vanity that's wrapped up in that, because I know that, at least for myself, it was, even if I needed to get a nice custom sport coat, did I really need to spend the $7,500 to have all the offset stitching and all? Now, I want to be clear. There's nothing wrong with doing those pieces, but I found myself certainly down a path of making decisions to impress people or fit a role that was still tied to my worth. Bought a $100,000 Escalade when I was 30 because I could and I wanted to, but it wasn't for me, right? And a lot of what you're saying, I'm hearing components of in my own story, right? And that's the reason I share that with you. But I would ask you, like, when you hear this concept of receiving love, validation, and connection through performance, does that resonate with you? And if so, how do you believe that this financial services opportunity allowed you to fulfill that, as well as recognize where you were maybe not living as congruent as you wanted to be?
Yeah, I love that. And to go back up with the Escalade for a second, that it's now a cool story, right? Like, not only was it cool that you had it, right? Like, you spent all this money on Escalade when you're 30, selling insurance, and then you get to tell the story now. So it's probably worth it, right? Maybe not a good money decision, right?
It's certainly one of the worst money decisions I ever made, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. So if I talk about performance and like how that, maybe make some people, feel connected. I know what makes me feel really good. Like there's, the 5 love languages. There's also these business languages. My love language is action. So like, when people like take action, when they do what they say they're going to do, that makes me feel really freaking good, man.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to get into a business like this, and operate as an entrepreneur, every time I actually did what I said I wanted to do for myself, it built confidence and it built trust that I needed to have in myself in order to keep doing right what others just can't do. And I think that's often have conversations with people that they don't want to have with themselves, never mind with someone they just met. But if we can break through that, because I can break through that within myself, because I have this confidence, because I have this belief system, because I have this trust, I can help other people change their lives. I can help them change, the generation and the generation behind that's lives with financial planning and building legacies through wealth. So it's a really rare, unique opportunity, one that I'm super grateful for. So in my space and in my life, I'm all about taking action, getting stuff done. And if you do that consistently and you're disciplined by doing things consistently over and over again, the results happen, right? Like, you can't avoid them. They happen. So, and it could go the other way, right? If you're consistently doing the wrong things, right? Bad stuff's going to happen. But I think when you do the right things and you start to stack the right behaviors, right habits, great things happen. And in our world, it gives you financial freedom. And with financial freedom, you have more control, more opportunities, and then you can really just take that whole thing and scale it as massive as you want to scale it. And that's direct impact. So you can get the whole thing, but you get nothing if you don't act on it. So I love that you said that. And, I think it's okay to look however you want to look. If it's the nice suit jacket that you mentioned, at the end of the day, though, it's the brand that you're building, and the brand should be the authentic you. It should be like, what is your identity, and like, how does that come across? Because in any business, any industry, it all starts with you. And if you're dealing with, the consumer on the other end, they're buying you first before anything else, right? So we have to establish this connection. And if the authentic me is not congruent to, how I look, and we do a lot of business like this, right? Then we're already off before we get the conversation off the ground.
Yeah. What did getting your 10,000 hours as a drummer teach you about the financial services industry or business in general?
Yeah. The more you do the same thing over and over again, the more, you can get that to that unconscious, competent level, right? Unconsciously competent. And you just, like, for life, have these, I would say, reactive skill sets. I haven't been drumming in a number of years now, just occupied with too many other things. However, if like something dropped from the sky, like behind me right now, like, I could probably grab that, like, it out of midair. Like, so you just develop these like skill sets unconsciously. So like in the drumming space, right? You become so fast with your eyes and your hands follow. It's just this really cool thing, and that like I have that ability for I feel like the rest of my life in any business, right? If you put that you put those reps in, not doing 10 different things, right, within the 10,000 hours, but one thing, you're just going to have these instincts that you're like, wow, like where did that come from? And it doesn't take that long to be a deadly assassin and whatever you want to be a deadly assassin in. I think it's like 18 minutes a day, puts you after 1 year in a space where you're better than 95% of people on planet Earth with that one thing. So if I look back at that time in my life when I was just doing this thing for fun, what did I keep with me over all these years? I would say it's just my reaction speed, my whatever it is, like my visibility. It's like, well, like what is that? Like I'm like a cat with certain things, and
Right.
it's all from that. So if we think about like skill sets that we're developing, are we just putting in the 18 minutes a day?
You talked a lot about your transition from using your hands as physical labor, right, to shifting into an opportunity to apply that work into a new field, but now it's intellectual and still effort and time and relationship, to not asking for or needing help, to now expanding this team and building this business. And so if you look at these kind of this trajectory and this arc of your career, where would you say has been the most challenging component, and how did that show up for you?
Lots of challenges. I'm at a place now where I'm actually excited for the challenges because they're really like these thresholds. And I'm like, okay, if I can break through this thing, I'm on the other side, and this challenge is what I need. And I know I can get over it. And then that's like all the good is on the other side. So my mindset now about challenges is a lot different than where it was certainly in the early stages of building out the business. So when I think about some of the bigger challenges, I don't think there are any major like ones that are like, okay, this thing's really different. I think it ultimately boils down to the same thing, really, and it can be applicable to any business or anything that we're really going after. I think that the first one is figuring out what that vision is that you have for the life that you want. And I really struggle with this, even opening up the doors of Rise North Capital. I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And I feel like a lot of it was commercialized. Like I needed to do this. I didn't really know what it was going to look like, but I had to say something, right? And I had to put something out there. So casting the vision and not really feeling like it was truly what it could be, because I didn't really know what it could be. I didn't really know what it should be by design. Like, how do you design a vision? I think it just has to come to you. That was a tough one for me. I think where we are today, when you throw it out there and then you back it up and you do things, it comes together. I see clearly now, like, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. And where we've got it to is really not even a financial advice company, but a transformation company that happens to be in the financial advice space. And that's, that's come together just in time. So, vision, was tough for me. It wasn't that clear. Even opening up a new company, launching a new brand. I would say another challenge that a lot of people face, right? I think we're all, maybe most of us, I should say all, we're in some sort of people business. It's relationships. And
I would say every business is a people business. I don't give a shit if
right?
it's a product on tech buying only. There's people involved. It's a people business.
Good point. So everyone's in a people business, and it hasn't been easy for me as an introvert to and really someone that I think is a decent operator more than anything else. to step into that, right? Step into, relationship building. And, it's still, an ongoing pursuit, but that always, I think right now and always will be, something that we can improve is, the depth of our relationships with people around us and really, getting, outside of the schedule and just, let's have, these conversations and let's have, it be meaningful and let's get deeper on, our purpose and why we connecting and why we driving this thing and helping people, figure out their vision, because the vision that we have, it's so big, everyone's vision fits inside of it, Brian. And that's what's really cool and exciting. And that's what people want they want to be part of something. And that's the whole movement that we're creating. So the relationship development piece is still, and I think will always be a challenge because as human beings, right, we're emotional, right? So we're always going to have to reconfigure what the relationship looks like, what it needs, what type of water do I need? Do I need more water on it? So the relationship piece in any phase of my life, any season of business, that's a challenge. And then I would say if I could just hit one more,
go for it.
It would be getting running mates, right? Like getting my leaders to develop fast enough where they can really duplicate a lot of things. And that's the whole point, right? It's not to be the owner of the restaurant, the dishwasher, the hostess, right? It's how can we help other people be better than who they could or setting out to be, having met you, right? That's the journey that I'm on, and it's just trying to do it fast enough, right? And it's just trying to get more of the right people thinking the right way, living by the same values, right? Sharing these values and going after something really big. And that's the constant, challenge that I have. It's like, I need more people that have this same type of desire to do stuff really big.
Yeah. And I would suggest that many people who are visionaries or big thinkers or leaders, right, often will face that last or really all of the dynamics that you just hit on. But I do want to focus on two. The first being the relationship piece, because relationships are both important in terms of getting new relationships for the growth of a business, right? Then there is obviously the maintenance of relationships that can take place over time. And then some of those are deep and some of those are not. But relationships, whether it's with partners, with your carrier partners that you represent, with the different management companies that are doing any of the books or processing of the funds or any of the stuff that might exist in your world, it's all relationships. It's all people. And that's what you started it with. So for you to be transparent, vulnerable, and also say that, this is probably the area that I've struggled the most and still struggle the most, I would say that's also not 100% unique, because there's a lot of people that struggle with that. Could you make it more tangible and specific for you? Where have been the relational challenges specifically for you? And how have you invested your 18 minutes a day in Windows as you've become aware to make those marked improvements in relationship building and development?
One, I think being type A driver, I guess I don't have as much patience as a lot of people when it comes to a lot of things. So, I'm quick to make decisions. And therefore that could, lead people looking for a longer conversation than what I give them, right? Or the amount of time that they need from me in order to really evolve that relationship. Going back to one of our talking points earlier about like what makes me feel connected and loved is, people taking actions. So I know that's not everyone's love language, right? Or business love language, right? Some people want, different types of deposits from me that are not monetary or not, maybe even high five types of recognition, but just, bonding time, right? Or just,
Yeah.
hey, let's hang out and really get to know each other. So I have to just be really aware of who I am and how I operate, and also really aware that not everyone runs that way.
Yeah.
And you need different people to collectively do really big things. So I have to be different with my approach, and I have to get uncomfortable, dealing with people, whether they're clients or whether they're teammates, to meet them where they are, where we can, build this, connection bridge to get across, right, the same way. And that's, one of the things, like when you ask, what are practical examples, because I'm more like, hey, if it's on this calendar, I'm going to execute, right? So I just have to know my strengths, right? And if there's something on my calendar, I'm going to do it. I got to lean into that. So if I need more one-to-one time with Brian outside of the office, right? Getting to know him outside of the office, then I just got to schedule that, right? So if that's a strength, I got to lean into that, versus a lot of people, what they do is they try to strengthen their weaknesses.
Yeah.
And that might look like, okay, let me think about, how we can go have fun, on the weekend. I don't even think that way, right? So I know how I think, which is like, if it's scheduled, and I'm going to be intentional about, scheduling this, because I know I'm now aware of it, and I know that you and I need to get tighter, then I'm going to put it on the calendar, and I'm going to do it. So that's how I think through and process some of these things now, when it comes to building relationships.
Well, I mean, dude, I resonate deeply with even the examples that you gave. I'm one of those that 6 months can go by, and if I'm focused and working in the lanes that I'm caring about most, whether it's with my family or with my business, anything ancillary, and I don't mean that to suggest that people are ancillary, but if it's not within my realm of focus, I might not even see it or understand or think about it, which means if I care about it, which I do, I have to do the same thing and put some level of intention into it. My brother and I, dude, he's one of my best friends still. We get together once a quarter, because if we don't put it on the calendar when we're done with each quarterly get together, it won't happen. And not because we don't want to, not because we don't care, but because we also know what happened over a 10-year period when we didn't put intention in, and we don't want that to slip. So again, I appreciate as simple as it might seem, the really pragmatic example of it's like, hey, I know how I currently operate. I also know my values and where they align in terms of what I desire with these relationships, which means I have to do something different than I otherwise would if this is something I truly care about. And so thank you for going there. You said something also in that other answer that I wanted to explore. Financial services firms, financial advisory firms, again, I would suggest that can mean so many different things. But you said we're not a financial services firm. We are a transformation organization, or whatever the exact words were. I think that was pretty close. Talk to us literally about what that means, what and how that's impacted in your vision and mission, like you talk about, and how does that show up in the way that you actually work with people?
For one, when we're looking at a candidate to come work here, we're looking at stuff that you don't see on a resume. And that's the stuff that, when we go back to when we talked earlier about these key ingredients, like what makes up someone's DNA that's really going to drive them to do big things and do things that most people don't do, that get stuck in these average lives. Well, joining us, it's not about average. It's about going after big things, which means that you're going to have to do over and above the average stuff. And I try to score things like in a way of, how do I teach things like grit and persistence, and where does this show up in past examples of your life? Because financial planning and the financial advice that people need, that is the stuff. Those are skill sets. Every skill can be taught. I don't know yet how to give someone the manual on being gritty or persistent. I think this is life that we've lived in some shape or form that becomes part of our DNA. That's the stuff that we're trying to suss out, that you're not going to see on a resume. Part two of that, and this again is early stages, us get to know someone that, wants to join the Rise North movement, we're having people put together the early stages of a growth plan. Now, I didn't say business plan. We don't do business plans because a business plan measures one thing. It measures how do we get to, X number over this time period. A growth plan is going to look through things that you want to improve personally, whether that's your relationships at home, your relationship with yourself, whether that's health and fitness goals. It's going to look at professional development. How do you want to be best in class at what you do? Whether that's additional licenses, whether it's, going back to school, whether it's reading 10 pages a day. I mean, these things are separators. So we're going to go through that. These are the things, Brian, that as an organization that is in the transformation business gets people either in or out with at the early get-go. And when we get people in with that, we're measuring all of it. So it's just like we, would measure a client's, performance, right? If they want to retire with X, we need to save, Y. And then we got to get, growth, right? From where they are, that starting point to where they want to go with whatever that solution is. We're doing the same thing with your fitness goals, whether it's your skills. We're looking at all of it. And as a result, you have people week over week, month over month, year over year, just becoming a better version of themselves. And when you get people becoming better versions of themselves, that shows up everywhere. It shows up for your clients. You're going to have more energy to be more dialed in. You're going to be quicker, right? Like, we're in the world where we got to operate quickly, because thinking about, people's attention spans just going down by the day. We have to get stuff done. We have to get it done in a hurry. And it takes a lot of energy. And what I'll tell you is, because of our business is set up virtually, where we have clients in all 50 states, so we're forming connections through computer screens, it takes even more energy than it would if you and I could sit down and have a conversation, have a beer, right? Shake hands. It takes even more energy, right? To come through
it does.
And really connect through the plastic screen in front of us. So hopefully that gives you a little context in terms of how
it does. It hits the lifestyle for your team. Help us understand how that transformational mindset, right, and belief system as an organization that gets infused through your whole team shows up as a client experience as opposed to any other financial firm.
Well, one, it's the people, because you're going to get people that are highly energetic, looking to get better, and be in it for the long run with you. There's people today in this business that we talk about staying still. They're not even staying still. Like, they're just becoming a ball of rust. And there's people that are just dropping like flies in our space. They're retiring before the people they give retirement advice to. So what we're doing totally different is we're developing the future of the financial advice space today. So every single day we're working on building the talent that's going to be there when you're 75 years old and need to take a withdrawal from your retirement account to pay your utilities. Okay. You're not dealing with 800 numbers. And then the time you get to the right one, it's out there and they're closed. You're dealing with human beings, right? We talked about this. Every business, what you said was every business is a people business. So if people are buying people first, we're putting the best people we possibly can in front of you. And then the financial advice stuff, that's the easy part, right? We're going to do it for you. We've built a financial hospital. Okay. Some people, they come in, they need life-saving surgery, right? Let's get them into ER. And they're probably a year or two away from retirement. We get them to the ER. Some people are proactively managing their health, right? And they're in for a checkup. Okay. That's a different floor. Some people, right, they need brain surgery. Well, the knee surgeon is not doing brain surgery, and the brain surgeon is not doing knee surgery. So we have different specialists that will see different clients. Now, example, different patients, right? Go to different doctors. So we've built all of that. But ultimately, what's going to make you feel that we're the best people for you is our ability to connect, our energy, right? Our understanding. And all of that takes the right individual with the right mindset that really wants to win in all areas of their life, that is playing the long game.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not bringing people in the way we are and really going through all the stuff that I shared with you, we're playing the short game.
Yep.
Because when the business eventually gets to a place, whether it's plateau, whether it's a challenge, you quit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you don't have these other areas of your life clicking. If these other areas of your life are clicking, you can overcome some of the business challenges that are associated with building a business in the financial advice space. So you're going to get the people that you're not going to get into the organization because they're selected differently. They're developed differently. And we're doing different things for clients. That's not the same thing that you've heard or seen or done. It's all about the experience today.
Yep. I appreciate that. And, so much of what we've talked about comes and gets integrated into so many elements of this conversation. Trust is a very important thing, and especially in the business that you're in. And though you can learn the mechanics of financial advising, what you and I both know is that emotional belief or relationship with money often is going to drive people's actions even more than the intellectual understanding of the plan, right? And that's things that I've experienced, and I know that people's relationship with money not only affects their ability to grow, but to keep it, right? And there's all of this. Now, I agree. I think that almost every skill set can be trained. But I do believe that the connection, the trust, the ability to read and help advise is something that it takes time, it takes reps, it takes care. There's a lot of people, and I'm not one of them, that has a fear that AI is going to replace a whole bunch of these types of roles that, might seem more transactional than relational, right? You can go on today to any of the LLMs and get an awesome financial plan. You can get great financial advice, but that's not the whole picture. Right? I'm a big believer, and I was a late adopter to AI because of what I believed was being sacrificed with humanity and the authenticity with the utilization of it, and more often it being used just for speed's sake. Which also means that I'm a big believer that we need to be investing in both artificial intelligence, but the real OG AI, awareness and intentionality, that will drive artificial intelligence to work within our business. If you're going to be cutting edge, if you're forward thinking, AI has to be a part of your mix, right? How are you guys using awareness and intentionality to infuse artificial intelligence into your business so that when people are 75, when you and I are 75, your people, your systems, and your support are still there?
I love the question because we're so all over it. It's not even, I think we're well ahead of most people, not even just most companies in this space when it comes to AI. I was an early adapter. I went to a 2-day course, and I came out knowing, just in those 2 days, more than 99% of the people, out there about ChatGPT. So, I got the early version of it, and I find myself today really being like this prompt engineer, right? So it's like I'm a part-time prompt engineer, and then a full-time leader. And what the AI has done is it's giving me back hours where I can invest more time in being a leader versus head down and all the other stuff. So I've taken that, and we've brought this to the rest of the organization in ways when we talk about the reps and the 10,000 hours. Like, how can I be everywhere? We have 55 people in the organization now. I can't be everywhere, and I can't invest the time that you need in order to get to where I am as fast as I did. And I want you to get there a heck of a lot faster, than it took me. So we've partnered with an AI company where we can really utilize this app to skill up. So it could be, where we're prepping a meeting with a client. Hey, this is what's going on with the situation. How would you handle it? Right. We can utilize the AI to just work on whether it's objection handling skills, or work on, hey, I want to just pre-brief with you before I go into this critical conversation with a team member or with a client. So it's 24/7. It doesn't sleep, and it allows you to get skilled up whenever you want. Because one of the things I've learned is when you put two rookies together to role play, they become as good as the other rookie, and typically they both suck. So this technology and the partnership that we have has everything you need, and its quality advice. So we've incorporated it really into our training, so that we can be more effective in less time, because that's what we compete against, more than anything. It's not other financial advice
I would think
companies.
today that's going to be your biggest competition is just the perception of what AI can do because of the lack of knowledge of what is missing, nuanced and context behind it. I appreciate that you're doing that. I, though I was a late adopter in the trajectory of AI, have gone very, very, very deep on it and do a lot of consulting around AI at this point to really be able to infuse and integrate it into systems and without sacrificing voice and brand. I'm a big believer in it, but I always have an insert human here in every process, right? I don't believe in full offset automation unless it is purely transactional and non-human interaction, right? So it's very much to me about understanding how it can be utilized with intention, and to do so in a way that doesn't sacrifice the brand and the impact, but instead makes things tangible in a way that we otherwise couldn't, creates consistencies where we are inconsistent as humans, right? Or allow us to compress time, right? So that we have more leverage and scale. And it sounds like those are the layers at which you're already intentional in your business. Couple more questions.
It's really helping as a back office. We're not in a transactional business, right? We're in a people business, transformation
100%.
business. So it's a back office tool, not a front office tool. I think AI will replace a lot of people's jobs, no doubt about it. It's happening now. I think one thing that it will not replace is leadership. So
I agree. I'm a big believer that it's going to replace the doers. It's not going to replace the thinkers and the architects.
Yeah. So you gotta step into leadership, and that, like all things, everyone's born, but you can grow into a leader. It's not like you're born a leader. Everyone's born, but you can grow into your leadership skill set. You can grow that out, and then you can lead, armies of people doing whatever it is, but AI is not going anywhere.
No, it's not going anywhere. And in fact, it's here and it's only speeding up. So, as we wrap towards the tail end of this interview, I'm curious, how did becoming a father, or I guess what did becoming a father teach you about yourself?
Wow. I'd have to give that some thought.
That was a hard shift on there. That was like a hard left turn,
that was a slide. That was a slider, bro. Listen, one, it gets you thinking, not just about yourself anymore, right? I think you got to be thinking further ahead, right, and beyond you. So it's not, you're thinking longer term. You're thinking over and above yourself, and you're thinking about, I think more so, right, what you say, what you do, how you live. Naturally, I think most people become more responsible. We feel this, this purpose of like, hey, we got to protect, our sons, our daughters, right? So for me, it was with my first son, it was definitely a learning experience, like all things are. But it happened in a season of my life where it was a lot about me. I was 26 versus when I had my last kid, I was in, my late 30s. So I've learned that with my oldest now to my youngest, that it moves so friggin' fast that you really want to, soak up, as much as you can. But ultimately, like all things, I think when you do it, you figure out a way to do it. You can take on more than you think you can, and you can get all the other stuff that you have to get done around it. And like all things, being a parent, just like being a leader, being a husband, like it takes work and it takes, intentional effort, to navigate that and to, again, beyond this chase of getting better with it. I'm still on it. And, part two of that is one of the things, becoming a parent and then having, two more that I've realized is you have to lead differently, whether it's, different ages or different personalities. And it really keeps you on your toes, man. It's just as hard as run a business for sure.
I would say it's the most difficult thing I've ever done. And I fully agree with everything that you said. You talked about 18 minutes a day, right? Being able to start to build 10,000 hours of greatness. And I'm like you in the sense that anything that I apply myself to, I try to reach mastery as quickly as possible. There's different variations of what mastery means. Mastery based on whatever I'm capable of in that time, right? Where are you focusing your 18 minutes of additional time to grow currently?
Couple things. One, on my personal health journey, my focus right now is actually on macro. So I'm learning the science of, whether it's calorie deficit, whether it's, protein count, and really trying
macronutrients and tracking the 3 most important ones. Yeah.
So you're on it. And I'm totally a novice right now, but this is, I become a great student at things I'm really, interested in and passionate about. I was a terrible student in school because I didn't give a crap. But when I get, on
you're interested, you're in.
Totally. So that's where I'm on right now. And I've always known that, your health, nutrition, what you put into your body, the gas in your vehicle, that's 70-80% of it. Now that I'm 41, I'm like, it's 80% of it. It's not 70, it's 80% of it. And I'm a fool if I don't know the science of how to manipulate things, because if I'm putting the work in,
right,
and doing the reps, I gotta get onto it. So I'm onto that right now. I've done a lot of work with just my leadership skills when it comes to, and we hit on this, vision and really, helping people see that for themselves. And I'm just like, I'm going into this other gear right now, where I have a ton of energy. Like I'm refueled in ways I haven't been in a long time. And I think it just comes down to being really clear on that purpose, which is I'm trying to help as many people live a better life. And, I want to be around them, and I want to be a part of that if they want to be a part of that. And that's the journey that we create here at Rise North, whether you're looking to get into this space and become an entrepreneur, change your life by helping other people change their life, or you're looking to get some financial help. We have great coaches, and I think I've just really embraced the coach journey. We have right now 3 coaches for different things, to your money and your financial decision, because we can't see. So that's the path that I'm on, Brian.
Man, I appreciate your time, your intention, your energy, your heart, your passion for improvement and for helping others. I really appreciate how deep you were able to go in some of the components. And even if you didn't know the answer right away, you stuck with things long enough to allow yourself full circle to kind of center in what is. So my friend, I want to just thank you for being here with us today. I know that folks are consistently able to track you down at Rise North Capital. You've got career opportunities. There's plenty of client opportunities. All of your stuff is going to be in the show notes. And I just wanted to say thank you for being here with us today, my friend.
That's what's with you, Brian.
Yeah. And for those of you that saw Matt flip open his lid, it's a never ending journey. It is a constant evolution, and it's always through these different seasons. If we're not careful, we can get the blinders on and fall into the black hole. But when we realize that we need the help, we need to surround ourselves with those that are better than us, and we allow ourselves to recognize the importance of leadership in creating congruence, then we learn how to be present, how to meet people where they are, and how to actually get the most out of every moment in our lives. At the end of the day, true wealth is beyond just monetary riches. It's also time, relationships, and health. And Matt outlined that with such clarity, because the way they are driving forward in this space that many people may overly transactionalize, it's to deeply make it even more relational, more relevant, and more profound because of the connections that can be fostered if we really understand how to help others grow. It can become transformational, and you have the same chance, but it will require you to flip open your lid and scan your can. See you next time.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippinthelid.com. We'll see you there.